Dispatches.
He's the man. It's awesome, funny, random, doesn't make any sense, but it's good.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while, but we are back. It's time for general conference and for the prediction show. This is our third prediction show. We're getting pretty good at it, I think. And as if I'd be alone, I brought my friends along with me. First of all, it is the master, the blaster, Peter Bleakley. Hi Peter, how you doing?
Hello, I am well, thank you.
Fantastic. Peter, budge over, because we have a new face to the lineup for the prediction show, and that is the very lovely Scotch lass all the way from Scotland. It is Jane from 21st Century Saints, Dr. Jane.
I've announced that I am now a doctor. Yes, I've included doctor in my title. And remind me to kick your ass later for saying that I'm Scotch. We'll deal with that separately.
I think Elder Ballard would back me up in saying that you're a Scotch lass. Was it Elder Ballard when he visited, said wonderful, or Elder Holland or Elder Cook? One of the three, they're all equally as interesting. And what would a prediction show be like without the fresh-faced People's Prince of YouTube, the one, the only, Nemo the Mormon? He looks fresh right now, but this is the beginning of Nemo's marathon of halftime shows that will take him here, there, and everywhere over the next, what have we got, 72 hours before you can put your pot of water down again. How is everyone then?
Good.
That good. Fantastic.
Excited.
Fantastic.
Thrilled.
Ecstatic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, everyone's here and we're all here to kick off this conference weekend. So much has happened even since the last conference. But before we get into it all, please, if you can, like this video, subscribe to the channel. It is free. What's not free is tithing. If anyone wants to send any of that in this direction, you can use a PayPal link in the description below. But if not, please just like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and hopefully for the next hour or so we can make people laugh and send everyone into conference with a smile on their face. And as you go in and the brethren think, the Spirit has really worked hard on these, like, you tell him it was us. Okay, so looking back over conferences past, there has been one person who has given us so much material and it's been fantastic, and that person is a TBM. No, it's not Russell in the crystal ball.
He gives us plenty of material.
I couldn't believe it when I found him waving the white flag. It looks like a white flag. No, it is it's Russell
this
again.
Guy.
This guy. No, it is a channel called Missionary Universe, and it's a TBM channel, but it's featured on all of the conference, all of these prediction shows up till now, because he always makes
One crucial element of this gathering is preparing a people who are able, ready, and worthy to receive the Lord when he comes again. a people who have already chosen Jesus Christ over this fallen world. I call upon you, my dear brothers and sisters, to become this righteous people. Because Jesus Christ overcame this world, you can too.
Whoa. Wow. If only conference was actually that good. You know what I mean?
I'm so pumped.
It had
I'm ready.
everything.
They could have put cleaning toilets to that soundtrack and I would still be pumped about it.
Oh, man. If only
Two
church
points.
productions were that good.
Yeah. As Mormon, that is literally what actually goes on in our heads, though.
Yeah.
We talk about it every year.
That kind of describes my brain. I'm like, yeah, conference. Yeah. It's going to be really crap. Like in really incredible ways.
Yeah. Well, no. Thank you, Missionary Universe, though. Yeah. 2 points from the video, though. Nelson and his greatest manifestation and all that. We'll come back to that in a minute. But the first one is the greatest generation of youth. Hands up if your generation was told that you were the greatest generation of youth. And I think we were all slightly different generations. So you're like, who is the great?
He's calling you old, Peter.
For me, yes. But it's like the washing detergent
nearly
thing,
100-year-old man.
You're still polygamous generation, so, you know, that fell flat. But it's like the washing powder, where it's always the new and improved like recipe, but the last one killed 99.9% of germs and this one kills 99.9% of germs. So which one is it that's actually the best? Is it new and improved, or is it just the same old crap? And the second part, what have we seen in the coming days? So the coming days from last October, that has been the greatest manifestation of the Lord's power.
I mean, the greatest manifestation of the Lord's power is that truth prevailed. Truth will prevail in the form of an SEC settlement of $5 million. The truth came out.
That was my answer.
Truth will prevail.
Oh yeah, baby.
It wasn't a settlement. It was a charitable donation to the US government.
Did they count it in this statement? That would be hilarious.
I bet in the 2023 statement it would be like, thingy to US Treasury Department for new calculators.
Exactly. Count Kolob knows.
Yeah.
Count Kolob in the comments. The Lord has revealed what they tried to hide in darkness. There you go.
Well done. So yeah, we got the SEC. That's happened in the last 6 months. The Lord revealed to everyone the temple video. Allowed a sister to film in the temple, which was fantastic for the first time. And that was all revealed. And I thought that took a real, great manifestation of the Lord's power to get that out there. We've got Salt Lake City Temple refurbishment being knocked back. So the Lord can't even in his great manifestation get that built on time.
Well, it's because if you've seen the leaked plans of what they want to do,
it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is madness. They're essentially Mormon Disneyland that they're trying to build in downtown Salt Lake. And my favorite bit of that plan is where they're like, there were two favorite bits. Is the first where like, here's all the strategic photo opportunities are going to be, so people can take selfies and tell people how beautiful downtown corporate Salt Lake now looks. And the other bit is, and this is why they didn't want this out there, was you look at it and it says, here's the tract of land we'll have to buy in order to make this happen. And there's 3. And you just know that if someone lets the people know that owns that, they could sit there and go, more, pay me more.
Land speculation, yeah.
Yeah. So they could filibuster that whole thing.
Well, if anyone's been to the Las Vegas Strip, anyone been? Okay, so you walk down the Strip and there's like the Venetian with people in gondolas, and there's the Eiffel Tower and just all sorts of things from all around the world, the pyramids and stuff like that. Okay, I think it's going to be like that. You know, you'll be walking through one bit and there'll be Lamanites and a whole settlement, and then you'll walk into the next, and over the space of 6 feet, you'll go from like old Lamanite America, Book of Mormon America, to the Polynesian Center, and then into old Britain, and then into wherever all these old church stories are.
Imagine walking through a Lamanite display or a Nephite display. Every time you go to a museum, normally you walk through, this is what Neolithic camps look like in 5000 BC or whatever. Here's what this looks like. Here's what that looks like. And then they're like, okay, here's what this looks like. But they can't say based on archaeological findings or based on this, based on that. They say based on the Book of Mormon and what we've come up with in our heads, this is what it looks like. Because we've got no evidence.
Yeah, but have you not seen the like ark that the evangelicals have built?
Yes.
And like it's a life-size scale model of the ark, and they couldn't build it. They had to use like first world excavators and tools and engineering in order to build this wooden / steel structure that big. And they've got all fake animals in it, and how they think it was all set up. It'll be like that, you know. It doesn't need
any the Jaredite
barges.
Like,
are
they going to build make them tight like into a dish?
It should be like a roller coaster ride where it flips, but you're in there with bees.
It says in the plans that they need transit. They need transit, and they said that like segways and electric scooters won't be considered, but maybe a monorail or something. Imagine a monorail where all of the carts on it are like Jaredite barges. So you get into them, and then halfway round they flip just to show you, and then they pull the bung out. They're like, all right, we've got to seal up the top now. Flip, and everyone's like, because their necks are broken, and it's just carnage.
Being stung, stung by Deserettes.
Carnage. Sorry, that's
where I grew up. No, there was a theme park called the American Adventure, and it was all based around the Wild West.
Right.
And there was for the little kids, there was like a buffalo ride where there was these little plastic buffalo, and you sit on the back of the buffalo and you go around the kids' roller coaster. Imagine a tapir ride. A tapir pulling a chariot on like sled, like runners.
like Mormon Lapland, people will take their kids there to be taken on a tapir sleigh ride.
Mormon Disneyland sounds brilliant. It sounds so good.
So there we go. I hope that we get that at this conference. I hope Russell M. Nelson said, we are pleased to announce in downtown Salt Lake City we're building a theme park.
No, at this conference they'll be announcing the new Christmas present that they're bringing out to make even more money. And you see in the game Operation where you have to pick out all of the organs. It'll be a rethink on Operation. It'll be called like Zelphoration or whatever, and it'll be the skeleton of Zelph the White Lamanite, and you'll have to be picking out like the spearhead from his ribs, and then picking out from another bit a bit of a gold plate and stuff like that.
Do you reckon they'll ever commission a Mormon version of Buckaroo, which is just a shelf, and then you've just got lots of different Mormon doctrines, and you place them on, and you got to place them on in such a way the shelf doesn't just break?
Okay, I've totally forgotten what we're here for, but
we're having a great time.
Fantastic. I wish. Okay, guys, we're
that'd be
retitling
amazing.
This video. Mormon, a Mormon themed theme park in downtown Salt Lake.
Commercial brainstorm
coming soon.
They should let us run it. It would actually work.
So, something else that's happened just recently. The Lord obviously had his hand in, and that is China using the church to influence US policy through Utah. Very interesting when that one came out. That was relatively new. I think it was only the other day that one became.
It's only a couple of days old,
news. I think I've got a little slide here as well show because I spent the time clipping it. So yeah, here China using the Mormon church to influence US politics. And it was an investigation by the Associated Press again, who are doing fantastic work this year. But could it be that in order to get this Chinese temple, they're having to make some concessions for,
Yeah. What I love about this story, the best thing about the story is the way that some active members have already been defending it. You go onto the Faithful subreddit, and they're saying, the difference is that actually when you read into it, they're not talking about the church, they're talking about Utah lawmakers. I'm like, okay, but have you not worked out that the connection is that most of your lawmakers are Mormon? And does that not actually point out the undue influence that the church has over Utah policymaking? And so an appeal to the church has an influence on those individuals and then therefore the policy that gets made. So the argument that, oh, well, they're actually just dealing with the lawmakers, not the church, doesn't really hold up because they're all members of the church and that connection is very real and present.
Yeah. I think it's just...
Esther Taft Benz must be spinning in his grave. Like, it's bad enough Trump sucking up to the Russian president, but to have like the Mormons facilitating the communist takeover of the world is beyond parody. It's extraordinary. So I was in some subreddit somewhere, and someone mentioned that there were two American intelligence operatives who'd been arrested and convicted for spying for China, and they were both Mormons. So I've just Googled it, and it's all true. It happened in 2019. Rockwell Ron Hansen was paid by the Chinese $800,000. He served in a Taiwan mission. And Kevin Mallory got 10 years in jail. And Kevin Mallory, who used to work for the CIA, was given 20 years in jail, both faithful Utah Mormons.
You can buy anything in this world with money.
I know. Apparently they appealed to their arrogance and their egos. It's like, I wonder where they got those from. But my gosh, I mean, it's insane. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can see it so easily. The mixture of naivety, hubris, having these sort of global connections with language. I mean, Utah is just like a feeding bowl for criminals with affinity fraud, but it turns out they're really good for getting spies as well.
Yeah, because all you got to do is convince them that, oh, if you do these things for the Chinese government, it will make it more favorable for your church to get a temple. And all of a sudden, their allegiance to God outweighs their allegiance to their country, and they're like, oh, well, it'll further the cause of Mormonism, so let's do it. That's a bit similar, but you know, you can see the themes.
No, but someone asked me this week about
parading around the earth. Go on. But no, right. When they were parading around the earth,
going
on about religious freedom. Sorry, we got the time lags as usual. Going on about religious freedom. And it's all about persecuting us because we want to discriminate against gay people. They never mention the Uyghurs, like people being by the millions hoovered up into concentration camps to be re-educated out of their religion in China. I mean, it was so obvious that they are not willing to criticize the Chinese government for anything because they're desperate for Nelson's dream of a temple in Shanghai to actually happen. They'll sacrifice anything, any ethical consideration for that illusory goal. And so it's no wonder that the members of the church will follow in line.
No, but Peter, you've got to understand that the Chinese government in that respect are very much, or the Mormon church are very much in line with them. So the Chinese government call it a re-education center. The Mormon church call it the MTC.
Yeah. See, I don't really get, I mean, it being a big deal for me is more of, it's an American thing. I don't really care. America has this weird relationship with other superpowers around the world. Doesn't affect my life in the UK. What was quite weird is seeing it happen in a week where the owner of TikTok is being grilled, and how it made America look really, really xenophobic. It like the amount of times we're hearing about the Communist Party and what their secret plans are through TikTok. So the fact that the Mormons are aligning themselves with that, that's what made me do the double take. Aren't we the super weird xenophobic people? That's what I thought. Yeah.
Sorry, Jane, if this happens, if they sing a song in Mandarin, the Tabernacle Choir, could you imagine like how amazing that would be, and how many Republican Mormons would like just turn around and march out with their arm in the air saying we oppose in English?
Which is, I mean, that would really weaken the church, because it seems, oh, I'm going to get cancelled for this, but it seems as though a lot of the very hardcore dyed-in-the-wool will not leave the church. Members of the church happen to also be Republican because of the work of people like Benson in really kind of pushing the sort of right-wing agenda amongst some members of the church. So if those members left in protest, actually that would really weaken the church, I would think.
Just checking, Nemo, your sub count just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah, man, I'm at 2,000 now. What?
Yeah, something like that. All right, don't rub it in.
This is the paradox: is the Republican Party through Trump has completely flipped. He's flipped the script. You know, he's been brown-nosing Putin for donkey's years and making excuses. It makes no sense at all. You know, from the old Cold War days, it's a complete reversal. It's just fascinating. Especially for us
it's
to watch from across the
fascinating
pond.
to you people who are interested, but
I
for
find it
me
interesting.
it is
I've done history at school,
yeah,
like.
because you're boring in English.
But
and
America's
it's
the
not
world police, so what happens to them affects us all, you know?
Right,
You've seen
so
Team America.
This is why I'm fascinated about all of a sudden if we're being best friends with communists.
I can't understand her. All I'm hearing is durga,
how's that
durga, durga,
happen?
durga, durga, durga. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're off the air.
Brown nosing. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry to all the Americans in the room. I don't know what's going on. But what we do know is that in the past 6 months, President Nelson was given this award.
Oh.
Holy hell. The Gandhi King Mandela Peace Prize. Now, I don't know. RFM once said that he's paid lots of money for lots of awards that are up on like his walls in his office and stuff. I think this is one of those. Who did they give a little bit of money to in order to win this? Because I know President Nelson's probably a lovely guy, right?
Well,
he's
retired.
It's what he represents.
I've met cardiothoracic surgeons. They tend to have quite a big ego. You know, it takes a certain kind of person to chop someone's like chest open and start messing with their heart. Anyway,
okay, yeah, I guess so. But which session do we think this will be mentioned in first? The first session?
Oh,
because
that's a good point.
You know that they are dying. They're bursting at the seams to bring this out.
Yeah,
and be like, President.
I think there'll be a film. They've started introducing films, so they can't really just stand there and say we've got an awards. They'll make it all. They'll have loads of visuals of him schmoozing with the NAACP black people, and him preaching against something. I mean, okay, here's a wild prediction. The Reverend, is it Amos Brown, something Brown, who is the very elderly historian of the NAACP, who introduced him when he spoke there, and has clearly done no research whatsoever. Because he basically started this language of Nelson pioneering ending all forms of discrimination while completely ignoring LGBTQ people. So my wild prediction is they'll have some footage in which they'll include that quote from the
Nelson
NAACP.
Will be awarded the prize for abandoning attitudes and actions of prejudice against any group of God's children through non-violent ways. Well, I mean, yeah. It was non-violent because he did bugger all.
But there's I heard a quote from Nelson not so long ago. I'd have to look it up, but where he's speaking about marrying, not having mixed religious or racial marriages and different things, and you're like,
that was
okay. That
was in the Institute Manual for Eternal Marriage until 2013, I believe.
Well, there you go. So apparently, you know, he's changed his mind and he's no longer racist, and he's going to be given this award by these people at Morehouse College.
Well, hang on, go down.
College.
Go down there a second. Because I just saw something that I think it's the way this article is written, but my goodness, he's invented time travel as well. President Nelson will be honored alongside Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Ira Heflin, the recipient of the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize. So a living recipient of a Nobel Peace Prize, and Abe Lincoln's coming back. So maybe he has contributed. You know, Abraham Lincoln, a man who actually did something to end problematic race relations in America. by ending
No, but
slavery.
Look at
And
this
Nelson.
though. Dr. Helfand, a recipient in 2017 of the Nobel Peace Prize and co-president of the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. Now that sounds like a proper,
yeah,
peace kind of organization.
Mhm.
Whereas when you say to me religion, sorry to all the religious people out there, I know that through history, religion has been quite a polarizing thing that has caused lots of wars, like the Crusades, and even we're in a continuation of these Crusades now with what's happened in the Middle East and modern day terrorism and all these different things. Okay, but it all comes back to my God's better than your God. So I wouldn't kind of put peace on the top of the religious kind of promoting thing, because it just promotes polarization of communities and tribes. Within the religions,
I don't know. I mean,
I would put peace, but globally,
historically, there have been particularly good people who have, in the name of their faith or their God that they have, really contributed in that way. And I feel really reluctant to. My understanding is that the committee who named this, who are giving out this prize or award, or maybe it's just a certificate, a fridge magnet, I don't know, whatever the hell it looks like. My understanding is they're predominantly made up of Black people, and so if that is your understanding, that's that this is your call to make. The white girl doesn't get to tell you what you should think. However, I am a Russell M. Nelson stan. I love the little guy. And he's like a little baby Yoda. He's like, he's getting older, and it's just sweet and adorable. Even I, as a Mormon, Russell M. Nelson stan, he's not who I would immediately think of giving a peace prize to. There are many other people that I would think of before that.
Just anyone that said maybe people shouldn't be killing each other in Ukraine.
That would work.
He's not done that.
No, he's not. Or all the wars. So I was reading in preparation for it's about disasters and what could the church have given some money to instead of paying into these shell companies. And the top 10 disasters on the UN list were all in Africa, and they were all caused by civil wars or war, basically war, and then famine that has come in the wake of that war, or humanitarian crisis. Could the church have contributed there and brokered peace there, or paid for some kind of, I don't know, peace process or whatever it might be? It seems like
it's this prosperity gospel that comes out from the church, where they're like, oh well, they know they just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and they need to build their own water pipelines. They need to beat the mosquitoes down themselves. They need to build their own mosquito nets. We can't go in there. I had the amount of people that come on my channel and say in the comments, oh, you can't just throw money at people. Money can't fix everyone's problems. No, but it can eradicate preventable childhood diseases. That's what money can do. And then those people are in a position where they haven't had a childhood disease, and they're more likely to be successful in life. These people, for some reason, need me to go through the cost-benefit analysis of charitable work so they can see it as a return on investment rather than just doing a nice thing for someone. That is an attitude I get constantly, and that seems to be an attitude that's in the top levels of the church. Is we give lots of money to charity, but the real thing people need is Jesus, because if we actually fix their problems, then they'll have no problems to ask Jesus to fix, and then they'll have no way to show their faith. It's bizarre.
I think the classic one that we have here in the UK is kind of like children in need, they call it. I'm sure in America you have a very similar thing where they have an evening of celebrities doing interesting things in order to do kind of a charity drive, on the phones and different things like that. And it'll say, £5 will buy a family mosquito nets to stop them getting malaria, these preventative measures, because there isn't someone down the street making mosquito nets to hand out to everyone. And, fair Mormon likes to say that we can't just throw money into economies because it will put people out of work. It'll stop the man selling the mosquito nets from selling the mosquito nets, and then his family will be in poverty and different things. But there's a lot of things that the church can do that just isn't being done by anyone, like building hospitals, building schools, and building centers to help people, I don't know, can food where there just isn't any food. I know they do that a lot in America, can food. But there are things that can be done. So yeah, I wouldn't say that he particularly deserves that award, but maybe, he just wants a headline, doesn't he? Let's be honest.
Just make a quick point, sorry. Malaria kills. I'm looking at the GiveWell website. Check out GiveWell if you want. They work out how much good can be done with the money that you give to charity, and they pick the top ones. 600,000 people are killed annually, mostly children under 5 in sub-Saharan Africa from malaria, right? It costs $7 to protect a child from malaria. So 7 times 600,000? Anyone do the quick maths on that? I'll do it right now. 7 times 600,000.
4.2
Friday
million.
night and you're
4.2 million.
at me?
So for less than the cost of the SEC fine, the church could essentially prevent people getting malaria in Africa for good.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
Okay.
There you go.
Fantastic.
Move on.
So that brings us to the end of the show. If you can like and subscribe, we're going for 400 likes on this video. And yeah, fantastic. I feel that it's like the newsreader, and the newsreader's like this great disaster, and then there was a roller skating duck. So back to the roller skating duck, the April 2023 conference predictions. So we're going to get into predictions, and this first one that we're going to look at is Peter's, but we're going to use a little bit of Nemo in order to establish that. But Peter's first prediction is the audit report. Peter, what do you think about the audit report and why?
Well, yeah. So a few years ago, when the numbers started to go bad, they shuffled off the convert baptisms and missionary serving totals from being announced by Human in General Conference into a backwater of the church website. But they still have the audit report, which I think it might even be scriptural. I don't know. There's some kind of, it's quite an official purpose of General Conference is to give some kind of financial statement. So they have the people who give this judgment about whether the funds in the church have been handled correctly are the church's own employees. So it's not an independent external agency of any kind whatsoever. And they announce in weasel words that the church's own policies were followed and everything's all scrumptious.
Should we
without ever saying
listen to those
what
words
the
now?
Policies are. Yeah.
Let's listen to some of those words from.
That is a beautiful shot. That's
hey, this is what comes up on your shorts. So this is a shot from Nemo the Mormon, beautiful. And it was about Mormons hid 32 billion despite audit warnings. But at the beginning, you've got a clip of one of these audits that Peter's talking about.
So good.
Based upon its performed, church auditing is of the opinion that in all material respects, contributions received, expenditures made, and assets of the church for the year 2017 have been recorded and administered in accordance with approved church budgets, policies, and accounting practices.
The problem is...
So that's what Peter's talking about. They say that at every general conference.
Yep.
So administered in accordance with church policies and whatever. Anyway, so now that the SEC's investigation found that these same people, their own auditors, told them on at least 2 occasions, years apart,
2014 and 2017.
Oh, detail, man! Look at that. That they would, that the SEC would not be happy with what they're doing, setting up fake shell companies. Those people would then have to stand at this podium and pronounce that according to the church's own systems, it's all lovely and good.
That clip that you just saw was from that year, 2017. So I made sure to pick one from a year when that happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all nonsense anyway, as we know. But I think it'd be, I don't know. I mean, they are incompetent, so anything's possible, as we always say. You know, it could always go either way. Like, if there's really a stupid thing to do, they could do it, or a sensible one. But so my first prediction is that suddenly the man standing at the podium declaring that everything was hunky-dory financially
Jorgensen.
will also be shuffled off from a live performance and will be on the website. The declaration will go. And if it's not, it's going to be like a meme factory for the world to feast upon, because it's going to be the funniest, ironic thing ever.
I think no matter what happens, there's a story there.
Funny.
Yeah, they can't
exactly.
win.
They can't win.
Yeah. Because they either hide it, which is what Peter's saying, they'll hide it on the website like they did when the baptism numbers started going down. They no longer gave the statistical report in conference. They can change it, in which case they acknowledge that something's happened and there's a need to change it. Or they keep it the same, in which case they show their blindness to the gravity of the situation and that they got caught with their pants down.
But it's not
any of those three things are good.
If they do keep it the same, it's not an untrue statement, because actually when you listen to the statement, he's saying that everything has been done according to approved by the First Presidency policies, procedures and practices. Those policies, procedures and practices got them in trouble with the SEC, but they were approved. So all he's getting up there and saying, we did things the way that we internally said we would do them. And that is never untrue. It's also not an audit, really, of any significance or of any value to anyone. But that's why they could just get up and say the same thing, because it remains true. It just remains useless information also.
I mean, it's also ridiculous. We've all been chewing over the criteria for church discipline in the context of the SEC report. So we know that there are cases every year of embezzlement, of bishops embezzling money in stake presidencies and so on. So then how can the auditor get up there in those years and say everything was fine, that all money was handled in accordance with policy?
Because that was their policy, was to handle it in violation of what the SEC wanted them to do. No, even though he had concerns about that policy, it was still true.
No, but what I'm talking about, though, is where they actually do church discipline against the bishops and the ward clerks and the stake presidency members who have broken the law, who have violated the policies, yet they still declare that there were no problems this year. What they should say is, in these particular cases, there was embezzlement, and we've dealt with it. But what they say is money was always handled in accordance with policy, which gives the impression that there's no crime here. No one's fiddling the books. No one's stealing from the church. So that statement in itself every year anyway is a massive lie. Even
I want to see Anthony Campbell's suggestion. I want to see him just walk up. I want to see him walk up with a stack of notes and just start doing this.
Making it rain.
And just walks off.
No, and those notes need to be from like the Kirtland Anti-Banking Society. You know. But Peter, to your point of that they were doing it in accordance, but it's a lie. I used to be a stake auditor, so I know they say there's an independent like system, but it's an independent system of church members going through everything, and it is quite a detailed thing going through the records from a ward from each ward twice a year, and from the stake and different things, and then questioning the bishop with your own financial temple recommend interview that the bishops have to answer and different things. But I was the auditor. I have no experience, professional experience, education in financial auditing. It is simply a tick list, you know, that members go through. So how thorough is it actually? And how hard would it be for someone who actually knows what they're doing to hide something from someone who doesn't know what they're doing, who's just going through a checklist and saying a prayer? You know, and we all know how the spirit of discernment works in these situations. So I wouldn't put too much, stock in that being an accurate process.
That's fair.
Okay,
You're
so
right.
on that one, moving to my first one, and that is because it links prophets and fallibility. So there's the new Gospel Topics essay that they brought out after the SEC thing to say, you know, guys, we're just men, and the fallibility of prophets. I predict that there will be speakers who go deep on the fallibility of prophets, but the infallibility of God. And then it brings us back to the good old chestnut of speaking as a man, speaking as a prophet, which is which. And if they're speaking as a prophet, then presentism and all those arguments don't come into it, because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. If they're speaking as a man, they get away with anything they want to. So I think, yeah, the whole prophet's fallibility. But Jane, let's skip to Jane and your first prediction, Jane.
Okay, so some of these predictions are me. Some of these predictions are yeah, my son wants us to shut the hell up already. Yeah, some of them are from the other 21st century saints. We are three people in one in one consciousness, our little trilogy. So what is my first
Trinity.
prediction? Yeah, like the little Trinity happening here. My
Humanitarian
first
aid
prediction is all about humanitarian aid. So I think this has been in the pipeline for a substantial amount of time. We know that people are being trained at a ward level and how to make that happen at a ward level. I think in light of the SEC stuff, this is going to be really nice PR, because I think there's a lot of things that can happen to almost raise the profile of the church. I think that if there was a way that people would look at re-engaging, this might be a way to do it. So at a local level, if our churches are providing and managing their own humanitarian aid funds, dispersing it however they see fit, Relief Society doing what it was actually set up to do in the first place, I think that would be really interesting to see. And that's my prediction. I think they're going to focus on that this conference.
But that would be a relinquishment of
And
control over their money. And that would be wrong, terribly wrong, because, you know, we can't even trust them to handle the money properly. So how are they going to trust bishops to handle it properly?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Do we think that they'll bring out the good old 2022 $1 billion charity report that they've been smashing on?
They've released a new one this year.
You just wave it. Oh, the latest one then. Whichever one it is, he'll hold it in his hand and be like, this is the very report that God touched with his finger. And
haven't they deleted all the previous ones?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of chatter that they've removed where they used to actually only claim a few $1 million, you know, which is the actual real number. And then they shifted to overclaiming by claiming all the hours that people work and all the fast offering and everything else as if it's additional humanitarian aid.
Mm-hmm.
So they've thrown all that down the memory hole, and it's only the recent hugely inflated nonsense ones that they're even talking about.
The number that comes to my mind is 600 million of the 2021 figure that Down Eight Jokes put out. 600 million of that was tithe offerings. Was fast offerings, sorry. It's fast offerings.
Yeah.
Which just
they you know, suddenly added that.
Work. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, or it is internal, but it's not what they're presenting it as.
But internal support of your own congregants, I don't think is charity work. I think that's looking after members of your own club, as it were. Charity work is all about reaching out from your in-group to others. That's how I view that.
Yeah,
the other is community support, and that's an important thing in society. But charity work is going outside of your in-group to others. To my mind.
And I think the thing is, the church has this massive pot of money, and they put up this number of all these hundreds of millions of dollars or pounds or whatever that have been given to charity, but none of it's come from this massive pot of money. Or some of it has, very little of it has, but the majority of what they're saying, oh, look at us, has come from members in the local community and gone back to the local community, which is great. But they have such an opportunity to do good in the world that probably no one else right now could do with that money that they've got. And there's probably other people that could do it please don't hurt me.
Or not
But
many.
the
I
church,
mean, not many. I mean, who has that much money sitting around? And who has got $100 billion just in easily liquidatable assets to just spend on anything, because they're already covering all of their other expenses. I mean, it's very, very few countries even could afford to do that. I mean, this is way more than the international aid budgets of most of the wealthy countries.
I mean, the WHO reached out to Elon Musk
the
and
amount
said
that they have.
Did they say to reach the WHO reached out to Elon Musk and said for a couple of billion they could end world hunger, something like that, and he was like, "I'll draw me out a plan and I'll do it." If they drew out a plan and approached the church with it, the church in theory could make it happen without even like tanking the stock market particularly. It's not like they would be pulling out of a company and destabilizing the stock market or anything.
And the fact that this has still not occurred to them is beyond comprehension. No. 3-year-olds could have worked this out decades ago. I mean, we're spiraling here because the scale of like horrific anti-Christian hypocrisy, wealth hoarding, failure to meet the need in front of you is so off the scale. It's hard to even put it into words. It's just so gobsmackingly evil and negligent and stupid and unimaginative. It's totally indefensible, and still they stand there all smug, boasting about having this much money as if they're being prudent and misquoting Jesus. I mean, it's so bad.
Yeah, and last point on this.
This is depressing.
Last point on this though is that the church has one shareholder to please. All these other organizations will have boards and big shareholders, like people to please, people to get approvals from. Nelson could just come out tomorrow in conference and say, "This is what we're going to do. The Lord has said it, and that's what will happen." So it's a pretty easy one for them to put through. But Nemo, we're going to move to your first prediction now. If you can give us this one, I think is a goer.
Yeah, I reckon we'll see the new hymn book rear its head. It's been in the pipelines for. Sorry to take it onto a glib and light-hearted tangent now. Not talking about the suffering of millions.
This is very serious.
This is very serious because they're likely to bin off some of the best hymns because they're not often sung. I'd be grateful if they did stop making all these international members sing In Our Lovely Deseret, because I've been to Deseret. It's lovely, but it's not my lovely Deseret, all right? It's not my mountain home so dear, so stop making me sing about it. Thank you. But I have strong feelings.
Issues.
But they're putting one hymn book together, from what I remember of the project. They put one hymn book together that would then should be translated into all the different languages, so it'll be standardized and consistent. It'll be much smaller, and it'll be a crying shame when they do, because we'll lose some great hymns. But I reckon they'll launch it. I reckon, and you know what? I'm going to be a bit facetious here. I reckon Russell M. Nelson will say, "The Lord has impressed upon my mind that a new hymn book is required, even the hymn book of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints," and that's what we'll get.
It will be called the hymn book at Temple Square.
The hymn book at Temple Square,
even though it'll be all over the world.
And I wonder whether I also predict the design of it. It'll have the new Jesus on the front, because we want to promote this, how central Jesus is to our message, and the hymns are all about him, yada yada. So we'll lose the kind of the decorative organs of the tabernacle organ, and we'll get that picture of Jesus in a bathtub.
Jesus in the bathtub.
Jesus in the bathtub. We'll get "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." A lot of people have voted for that to come back in. Jerusalem would get my vote, even though it's apocryphal, and but the church will probably bin things like "If You Could Hide to Kolob," even though it's got one of the best pieces of music in the entire hymn book, because it's Ray Vaughan Williams. So great bit of music, but doctrinally I think it's too challenging when investigators are in sacrament meeting and we start singing about Kolob.
Yeah, one that I always thought
the biggest test. Well, go on.
Onward, Christian Soldiers. Because I always thought, well, we're not Christians, are we? But now they
Yeah.
want to be
It
Christians.
always felt weird
so,
singing it.
yeah, but now
Yeah.
they will now.
Yeah. So the ultimate test will be, will they take praise to the man out? That is, that's the number one thing everyone wants to get rid of. And I mean, that will indicate, that will tell us everything we need to know about the direction they're really serious about going in.
But then the Scottish should be double binned off.
It's going to be hard to lose them.
Because that's a Scottish folk song. It's Scotland the Brave is the melody. So sorry, Peter, Karen.
Yeah. No, sorry, I apologise. There's a little time delay still, so we talk over each other. But I mean, the people are serious. I think could be really divisive. I think because people care about this stuff deeply. They announced it years ago. I thought, oh, if it's 3 years, that'll be really long, and that was way over 3 years ago. And we've heard not a peep about it. There's a Facebook group I joined. It's huge for LDS music directors, in which they all bitch about their endless fights with unmusical, ignorant stake and ward leaders who don't get it in the way that they do, and so are hyper vigilant about their callings and the songs and the appropriateness and all of that sort of thing. I think part of the original plan, if I remember right, it was so long ago they talked about this, was to kind of have some more modern, more diverse worship music and songs. So we might even get some, more modern Pentecostal evangelical stuff in there.
Guitar solos in sacrament meeting.
Yeah. More global. They'll want to get some maybe some more traditional stuff, probably from Latin America, I would think, from Africa and so on. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. It could be a plus if it diversifies, but I think for me the only thing that will matter at all is, will they have the courage to get rid of praise to the man? Because all of us have had toe curling experiences as missionaries, sitting with investigators there. And when you've got someone, your golden investigator as a missionary, who it's taken forever to get to church, and if they join, there'll be a keeper, you can absolutely guarantee that will be the Sunday they sing praise to the man and screw it all up after you've convinced them we don't worship Joseph Smith. So I think it's going to be very interesting, because there's so much cultural baggage with the hymn book, and they don't change that often. It's going to be fascinating.
If some good old gospel like TLC makes it into the hymn book, I will go back.
I'd love that.
Just to sing like No Scrubs or whatever. You know what I mean?
Count Kolob's just made a really good point in the comments. Nelson wants to erase Hinckley, so they'll remove his hymn, My Redeemer Lives, and add one penned by Russell M. Nelson. That is a solid prediction, Count Kolob. That's wow. I could see it happening, not gonna lie.
Okay.
And it could fly under the radar.
Announcement, we love you, Jane. Jane's had to step out for the evening and just help out at home. We're all at home, and this is all just extra on top of our families and work and everything like that. So Jane, we appreciate the time you gave us, and we will continue with Jane's predictions, because randomly I was very organized this evening. We have it all written down. So we'll continue with Jane's and discuss them as well. But for now, we want to move to Peter. And Peter, I think this goes with kind of the whole hymn book thing, because at church on a Sunday during the meetings, the best part was when you got a banger of a hymn on and you could really go for it, and it passed some time, especially if it was like 7 verses. But Peter, you have predicted something to do with the length of church.
Yeah, I'm going to predict a return to 3-hour church. Which is because, in part, someone in Reddit somewhere said they're actually pioneering this. I'm sorry, I haven't had time to go and check the details, but they're doing a little pilot program to introduce the 3rd-hour thing. And the reason given, I think, it is kind of which I have a lot of empathy for, that people who don't have Mormon families, it's all over very quickly on a Sunday, and that's all they get as Mormon time. And they must be sort of hankering after the time to do extra brainwashing and so on. I think the idea of sorry, Doug. I think the idea of everyone rushing there, rushing out, and making everything easier has not worked, clearly, because numbers are still crashing. And I think maybe they'll calculate they actually need more time with people to kind of firm up the commitment. You can see it starting to happen with home teaching and visiting teaching, which they call ministering now, that they sort of gave up on reporting on numbers of people visited because it was always depressing because hardly anyone was doing it. But they have to measure, so they couldn't resist it and maintained tracking numbers of ministering interviews, i.e. the quorum presidents checking up on you. Have you been doing it? That's also not worked. I mean, it's a disaster zone out there. Hardly anyone's doing anything, not that I ever did much. So I think, again, they're inching back towards actually tracking which families have been visited. There's a slightly opposite thing going on with the youth, because in the training for seminaries and institutes in January, they announced slashing and burning any serious requirements for graduating seminary. They basically say it doesn't matter how many scriptures you do or do not read, as long as you turn up for the lessons, you can graduate. They want you in the room to tell you the faith promoting stories and brainwash the kids, but they've recognized that they're asking a bit much of kids who aren't at that buying into it, or who haven't got supportive families. So with that as the excuse, they gave the example as a scenario. Brother Lund, I think, did that, the Young Men General President, that, for example, for a term or semester or whatever they call them, if you're doing Doctrine and Covenants, you'd read Joseph Smith history, which takes about 5 minutes because it's 2 chapters or 1 chapter. And then you'd negotiate with your teacher about what else your reading requirement was going to be. So they've disconnected, they've totally unplugged seminary from actually engaging with the scriptures. They've realized it's not working. They're hemorrhaging seminary students. There's been reports from Utah heartlands on Mormon stories and so on, that the number of people enrolling in seminary and institute is just falling through the floor. So they've dumbed down and made it easier when they usually pretend not to do that. But I think as far as Sunday church goes with the adults, they're feeling a loss of control. And the less you expect of people, the less you can control them. So I think there'll be a drift back towards longer time at church so they can control you more.
Yeah, I just want to point out Joe Schmo's comment here saying he can confirm the requirements for seminary have been slashed. You no longer have to read the book of scripture during the year. Now it's essentially reading the scripture mastery through the year to get credit. Scripture mastery is 25 passages of scripture, which you could read all 4 years worth, 100 passages of scripture in a day. So could you pass seminary now in a day? And if that's the case, what's the point? Jane did predict that there'll be a seminary revamp. So I think that all kind of goes hand in hand. Back to the 3 hours, I think Peter discussed it just before we came on air, that this could be a closing of the circle of the great COVID revelation that didn't mention COVID. And that is that just before COVID came, Russell came up with the whole 2-hour family church program so that everyone could get through COVID and still be all spiritual and stuff. And now that COVID is less in the public's mindset and different things like that, he could use this as the Lord just gave us that for a difficult time. But now we need to get back to, what it was before. And we have this new church program, which isn't the old 3 hours. Maven just mentioned how funny it is that we're having a pilot program for something that the church has done for decades anyway. It could be for like 2 hours and 59 minutes. And we could say that minute makes all the difference to your eternal salvation. But yeah, it's 3-hour church. I would be able to hear my family members groan collectively from across the city. That's how bad they would, how much they would hate it.
Ruth just made a really good point in the comments. 25 scriptures out of context, which allows them to control the narrative. When I did seminary, I read the entirety of these books. So I read the entire Book of Mormon. I read the entire Doctrine and Covenants. Reading the entire Doctrine and Covenants, you get to those passages where it lists out how much people can pay per share of the Nauvoo Mansion house. And you think, does this really need to be here? People will now just no longer know that exists because they will just read what they've been told to read. So you're going to have a whole generation of kids that don't read D&C 132.
Yeah.
In seminary.
Absolutely. Because they'll just read, I think 132, one of the verses at the beginning is a scripture mastery. Is it something to do with exaltation through celestial marriage? But basically it is just, from a summary point of view, get married in the temple in order to be exalted. That's it. There's
go
no
into all the threats of destruction.
Actual, context. So let's
I think in the bigger picture, in the bigger picture, what's going on here is that they keep going back to the thing they stopped. You know, we've seen all these reverse ferrets left, right, and center going on, because they can't think of anything new. They're not capable of that unless campaigners and activists really force them to do something new reluctantly. They will revert. So they'll be, oh, good old days. It used to be better. The new thing we tried isn't working, so we'll go back to that. What we're going to see increasingly now is panic and desperation. I mean, it's clearly already started. If you're going to do seminary without having to read the scriptures, they've lost their minds completely, and they can't imagine a way to make that work. So it's going to be compromising anything is up for grabs. Any change, any flip-flopping, get rid of women's session, bring it back. Just all of it, and so I think we're going to see an acceleration of desperation, which will involve a lot of double downing on how things used to be, as well as trying reckless new stuff, but without thinking it through or consulting the members. So it's all going to be fascinating over the next little while, and it's starting now. It's already happening. Yeah,
an amazing one, Peter, would be if they want to keep the 2-hour church because they want, they don't want the membership to revolt over the fact that they're giving them more Jesus, not less. If they actually come up with, you keep your 2-hour church, but every other Sunday there'll be a Relief Society lesson on the Sunday afternoon, or a priesthood lesson, and they actually go back to before the consolidated program and come up with a refreshed program that they used to have, where you'd have like sacrament in the morning, and then in the afternoon you'd go for your other lessons, and then one night in the week you'd go to Sunday school and different things like that. Could you imagine if they broke it all up again and brought it in under some different name? Because a lot of the people that
bring
live
back separate manuals. You know, like, what is the point of meeting separately as men and women to discuss exactly the same general conference talks? You know, they must realize that so much training and cultural stuff has been lost. Now the men never talk about what it even means to be a priesthood holder. That was a huge loss, and we just replaced it with boring dreck from conference talks. I mean, in a positive way, it'd be amazing if you had opt-in classes. Like, third hour could be opt-in gospel topics essays, opt-in institute, opt-in something, so maybe they could frame it that way.
But most wards struggle to find one Sunday school teacher, let alone enough to do opt-in.
They're running out
classes.
of people.
They're running out of people.
But something like that would actually encourage people to stay and be interested on a Sunday, because they'd have a bit more choice, and could go deeper, which is really lacking.
PD?
Yeah. Okay, so what I want to do now is let's hit a few, because we've got quite a few. We don't need to go through them all. Nemo, give me one that you really think is going to happen from your list, and Peter, we'll have your third one.
Because I don't think the hymn book's actually going to happen. I've just read an article update from 2020 that says it's still several years away. So I rescind that. Another sarcastic one I said was that now in this global sort of socioeconomic climate that we will get a location for the Russian temple. Don't think that'll happen. I think we'll get another teary farewell from Nelson. I definitely think we'll get that, and a mention possibly of him as the temple prophet. He might mention some stuff about the temple. And I guess the one we should possibly talk about is that I reckon someone, possibly Holland, will talk about just how persecuted we are. The standard of truth will get quoted. And, he's now become Dr. Holland because he'll talk about how cancel culture tried to get him. There's already been articles about how we've experienced cancel culture in the past because we're Mormons and people don't like us. Mormons, when we used to use that name, were generally actually viewed quite positively in recent years. Bit weird, but quite positive.
Yeah, and
we're
to
presenting
Dr. Holland,
as diverse and interesting.
Yeah, but now we're just going mainstream now. Hence why Jesus is now in the temple like 10 times and never was before, but he is now because we want it all to be seen as being very mainstream Christian. So Dr. Holland. So for those that haven't seen it over the past few weeks and days, Elder Holland was announced as giving the commencement speech at Southern Utah University. And Jane even put herself as Dr. Jane tonight because there was petitions and everything against Holland giving the commencement speech, especially after his most recent speech at BYU with the musket fire and different things. So people really didn't want to give into it. The university has said that they are keeping the invitation, that they're respecting that invitation, and Dr. Holland will be speaking. So they have rebranded him from Elder Holland to Dr. Jeffrey R. Holland in their kind of socials and different things when they've been speaking about him. So I don't know if they think that makes him a little less divisive because he's Dr. Holland rather than Elder Holland representing the church, but he's really just Elder Holland.
I think so. I think that they're secularizing him. They're secularizing him to try and take away from his religious beliefs. They're trying to say, hey, he's just here as a speaker, as a man. He's not speaking as a religious leader. So come on, don't bring his religious beliefs into it. But actually, he can't not speak as a representative of the church. That's why he's there. Yeah,
but something that I had to I guess wonder about was what makes him a doctor. But doesn't he have a doctorate from like Harvard or somewhere?
Harvard Divinity School, I think.
American Studies.
American
Studies. American Studies.
Nothing.
And I felt like that was a bit like a medical doctor having a doctorate, but believing that these are feet and that we walk on our hands everywhere. Because it's a bit weird, isn't it, that he's got this, he believes in this fantasy ancient America that Joseph came up with, but then has a doctorate in American studies. So very interesting. My last
it's
one
from
was,
Yale, sorry.
Was it Yale? So from a very respectable place, it must be a very niche part of American studies that he's just done really well on and ignored the rest, and just this really niche pinpoint that he did.
I think it was something to do with polygamy. He did some kind of really shallow research about some aspect of polygamy.
He studied he authored a dissertation on the religious sense of Mark Twain.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So
yeah, interesting. So I think they'll speak about loving apostates but rising above them. So they'll place everyone, above their apostate family members and say how well you're doing, but we need to love them back into the church, rather than, because they've realized hating us just causes us to set up our own podcasts and hate back on them. So maybe if they love us more and give us more cuddles, we won't be as angry, and we'll all close our channels and go back to church. Fat chance. Peter, your last one was quite interesting, about tech and media platforms.
Yeah, I mean, the hilarious thing when you look at the largest, they publish the top 10 investments from Enzyme Peak, where they've put the tithing money, and it's most of them are media companies. You've got Amazon, you've got Google, you've got Facebook, and they've put literally over $100 billion. Over $1 billion in those, sometimes 2 billion. So $1 billion is $1,000 million of tithing money gone into these companies. Yet in their talks on General Conference, they describe these exact same companies as the enemy, the purveyors of untruth. Every time they mention the internet, they try to describe it as this confusing mess that no one can tell what's true or not in, and it's really dangerous and threatening, which it is if you're in your 80s and don't know anything. But young people are taught to navigate and fact check online. They know how to determine what's credible information or not, if they can be bothered. So my prediction is, I'm going to put a number on it, that they will mention at least one social media company as bad in one of the talks that they have given more than $1 million. Sorry, $1 billion. 1 million that they've given more than $1 billion.
Can I be a pain in the bum?
Tithing money. Go
Can I be a
on.
real pain in the bum for your prediction?
When
As
would you?
their current positions sit, there's only 3 positions they hold in terms of US 13Fs that are over $1 billion. So they have over $1 billion in United Health.
Used to be bigger.
They have over
Right.
$1 billion in Microsoft, and then they have just over $2 billion in Apple. So there aren't any.
Okay. What have they got in Google? They used to have more in
In
Google.
Google,
What have they got now
they've
in
got
Google?
931 million in Google.
Oh, come
So-
on. That's
Talk about
round
splitting
up,
hairs.
damn you.
So
That's splitting. That is splitting.
it's
hairs.
my job.
All right.
It's
Okay,
that's fair enough.
okay.
All right. I'll
You-
go with
you-
a huge amount. More than
You
you've got invested in these things. How much
Yeah,
in
more
Facebook?
than we-
Tell me the Facebook number.
okay.
More than we could ever dream of having in our bank account.
Okay,
know,
Meta.
Can we get it back from them?
361 million
Where's-
they've got in Meta.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
I think any of the main well-known like household name tech or
Over 100 million.
Okay. Well,
My new threshold is 100 million.
There you go.
There you go.
you're
Thank
like
you.
from
Thank you for fact checking me.
what was the
You're
guy's
welcome.
name from the British comedy The Spy Who Shagged Me?
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers.
Powers.
And when he comes in, he's like, $1 million. And they're like, no, more. Dr. Evil, that's it. Thank you. And he's
Yeah.
like, $10 million. And like, no, more. Yeah, you're now our very own Dr. Evil. But as if by
There we go.
by
100
magic,
million is my threshold.
Hey.
21st Century Saints and Jane is back with us. And Jane, I was just about to read through your list of predictions. So it's fantastic that you're here. Because you can do that now. We've spoken about humanitarian aid. We've spoken about the seminary revamp, but you also had something on social media.
Yeah, so we are thinking more social media control with a focus on media control for kids and youth. I think that's where it's going to be aimed as for the youth, with the sort of laws that they're bringing in over there about the restrictions for underage kids using social media, especially TikTok. I think, I think it's going to be a bit of a doubling down, so that parents in the home are going to have this idea reinforced, because they're teaching it at church. They're going to be more sort of compliant if that's happening, less pushback. I don't think youth. I don't think you understand youth correctly if you think that's going to help. But yeah, that's my prediction is about a doubling down on that.
Okay, and with that as well, your anti-activism.
Yeah, I reckon the activism is just. We had Brother. How long ago was Ahmed Corbett's talk on?
It was
activism?
to the end of last year, so like November sort of time last year.
Yeah, so that
and Sherry
between
did a similar thing.
Yeah, right. So I reckon that was a kind of conference-worthy talk, wasn't it? It had quite a bit of impact. So I think we might see some drilling down on don't listen to the podcasts, especially when they're asking you to get behind a particular cause like safeguarding. What else? Yeah, just sort of general anti-activism being frowned on, I think is going to be drilled down. I also think that we're going to see a talk around abuse, something that that we would be quite excited to see if they would do properly. Because there's been this spate of media interest in all of these cases where people who hold authority in the church are going out and killing their wives and kids and stuff like that. So I reckon there might be a recovering from abuse, healing from abuse, that type of thing, but nothing to actually, I mean, they'll nod to it is not okay, abuse is not okay, but they're not going to do anything to actually help us recognise what it might look like, what responsibilities we have in wards to keep people safe, and nothing to actually work with other than don't do it, it's bad, and if it's happened to you, come get a hug. What else? So abuse recovery, I reckon they're going to take the focus away from missionaries at a young age, because they know they get talked about this a lot, and I don't think they're necessarily not going to talk about young people serving missionaries. I think the focus now changes to the seniors serving missions, because they are the strength of the church. They're where all the money comes from. They're the faithful. That's the audience. And we know that there's recently been a talk encouraging seniors to serve a second mission. So we may see that in conference, but certainly there's going to be, I think, a mission focus for the seniors. And of course, because it's conference, we're going to see lots of last day stuff to make preppers go wild, and it's right around the corner. So the clock's going to get closer to midnight, and that's, I think, going to be the theme running through.
Yeah, we're second to midnight. Tick. That's all it needs. They're waiting for it. Okay, so those were our predictions of what will be possibly spoken about or announced. We've also got some predictions to fly through. The first one I want to do is how many sisters will speak or pray. So basically any involvement from a sister. At the last conference, it was 6. There was a total of 6 sisters that made it to the pulpit. So how many sisters will make it to the pulpit this time? I've gone with 7 because I think there's possibly a sister session this time, but I'm unsure because they've really muddied the waters on what's a priesthood session, what's a sister session, what's just a special session. So I've gone for 7. Jane, how about
6.
you? Nemo?
I've gone for 5.
And Peter?
5.
5.
You wrote 4 on the thing.
You went for 4, mate.
4? What?
Yeah.
4. Does anyone?
This is continuing revelation, you know. This might be Peter's moment. He might have been channeling it. You guys are just screwing with his revelation.
Does anyone think we're going to get more than 7 or less than 4? Ms. Conky's gone 4.
What tends to happen
Maven's got 4.
When we have a year where we have more women speakers, we all get a bit excited about it and like, oh, that was a good year. We had more than we normally do. And the next year, we don't want them to get overexcited and think you can expect this every time. So I don't reckon we'll see.
Treat them mean, keep them keen.
Anthony
that's
with
how
12. Now you've got to bear in mind the big problem with this is the more women speak, the less men speak. There aren't more speaking slots. Yeah. So there's the 15 have to speak at least once. Several of them have to speak at least twice. And one of them has to speak even as much as he possibly can because he likes himself. So the more they speak,
can I just push back
the less
on that a minute?
There are.
Go
on, bro.
Because I noticed last time, I don't think all the apostles did speak. I think they divvy it up across the 2, actually. But, I mean, the point is correct.
No, I'm sure we went through this because we ticked them off, I'm sure.
But there are, your point is so important because the great moment of joy to these men who've crawled their way up the greasy pole to become 70s, on the vague chance they might just get to speak in general conference once would be like the highlight of their entire lives. So you can, during all the flip-flopping about Saturday conference evening, when initially they just cancelled the whole thing, like it's too much conference, they must have had an immediate backlash when someone actually did the math and they'd realised they'd have to say no to loads of apostles, as well as the other general authorities that they're trying to motivate and tantalisingly offer glory.
They all
in
spoke
the sun
October.
To. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Ms. Connie does have a good point, though.
Mm-hmm.
You could just shorten the time slots and give the minor, the 70s and people that speak, give them like 5 minutes instead of 10, and then sisters could come in there. They could even get their wives in. You know what I mean?
We could do TikTok conference. We could just scroll. Like, you got 3 minutes. Go.
They could come up in shorts. The screen could change aspect ratio. And they could just be there in the vertical box with the subtitles smashing up on the screen next to them. That would be funny.
Wendy will ever talk.
Well, see, I was going to say if we're taking requests, like I mean, this might kill her career, but Sister Heidi Griffith spoke at a recent women's conference in the UK. She is badass and good. She's someone to listen to, from what we could see. I hope I haven't just hexed that. Yeah, someone like her, like powerful women, not someone who's speaking with a trembling lip and sighs about the prophet, which we're seeing a lot. So
more
yeah,
Tracy
women,
Browning.
like, yeah, because she spoke in the same conference. She was also incredible. So yeah, I want to see women who know what they're talking about.
Yes, because we get a lot of brethren who've got no idea. So okay, so moving on, we will go for conference cliches. So these are phrases that we hear all the time, like Mormon cliches, like without a shadow of a doubt, but phrases that are just very conference cliches. So I'm going to start with covenant path. Anyone else?
Higher and holier ways and let him prevail are the two that I often list out for.
Okay. Anyone in the chat as well, if you want to pop any in. Jane?
I'm going to just say the word even, the phrase even, the Lord Jesus Christ, even. We're going to have some of that. I like it when they do that.
Impressed upon my mind.
Continuing restoration.
Tender mercy.
Tender mercy.
Tender mercy. Yes, with the trembling.
Are we still hearing covenant path, or has it changed? Has it evolved into something else?
There's covenant path and there's higher and holier ways. Those two kind of go together. The word supernal.
And then we've got this one. Wait, apostolic, edify. Qualify for our beloved prophet.
Our beloved prophet,
Elliot Woodland. Our beloved prophet. So these are all ones that we'll be looking out for.
Who's going to win the PBK award? Doug Vincent wants to know. It's going to be Cook, isn't it, or Anderson?
Nemo, can you explain the PBK award?
Yeah, so the PBK award was I don't know who invented it. It kind of just came into being.
Doug Vincent, right?
I think it was Doug.
It was Doug Vincent.
Doug Vincent, who often joins me on the halftime shows, and I'm delighted to say will be joining us again this time. He came with the Prophet Butt Kisser Award, which is who is kissing the butt of the current prophet the most. Anderson, I believe, is the undefeated reigning heavyweight champion. He has the belt for being the guy who just quotes Russ Nelson the most. And that's what it takes to win the PBK award, is to be the person that quotes Russ Nelson the most. So we'll be playing our traditional game of Jesus, Joe, or Russell. This conference as well. We'll be counting up who gets mentioned the most: Jesus Christ, Joseph Smith, or Russ Nelson. Who gets the most quotes? Hint: Jesus doesn't tend to win.
And who's your prediction to win that?
The Prophet Butt Kisser Award or the Jesus Joe or Russell?
The Jesus Joe Russell.
It's always in the April conference. It's always a bit closer because it's we focus on Easter, we focus on the resurrection, the atonement, so you get a bit more Jesus. Whereas the October conference is very much like just Russ Nelson heavy.
But it's not. But it's hysterical because it's not an automatic win for Jesus.
That's what it is.
Closer.
Yeah. That's what it is. And then the Prophet Butt Kisser Award, I think Cook could dive in. And it's often minor 70s will because they're looking at progressing their church career. These 70s that get invited they get their turn at conference. They'll just go hardcore, like Klebinglat or whatever his name is.
Yes, you're Klebingat.
Klebingat, yeah.
Desnat Goebbels. Yes,
he
absolutely
went for it. So
smashed it.
And Kevin Pearson.
PD, take the reins.
Predictions from social media. Because Peter, go on.
Can I just add a caveat to the PBK Awards? That last time Russell Nelson had to actually sit on a stool or something while he spoke, and he didn't speak for very long, which implies him getting quite elderly. So one of my predictions is he's going to look very frail. Oakes is going to look even more frail. He looks like he's well on his way out. Therefore, we will know. The only way we'll know behind the scenes if he's actually close to death and the apostles know, if the butt being kissed starts to sound like Oakes's butt and Ballard's butt. So if Anderson and Cookie have reduced their mentions of Nelson and start quoting Oakes and Ballard, who are next in line for profit, because they are desperate to be in the first presidency. It's analysis, dude.
Yeah.
That will be a sure sign that Nelson is not long for this world.
Okay.
Because they'll transfer their butt kissing to the next most powerful man.
Peter, when you started with Prophet butt kissing and then said that he was sat on a stool, I thought you were going to imply that the stool was one of the brethren. Literally, they were fighting over who could get there first on their hands and knees.
Well, I
sit on my shoulders.
Did you cover this earlier when I was indisposed? So remember last year we weren't even sure if Russell M. Nelson was going to make it to this conference. There was the conference farewell.
I'm actually glad he didn't.
Not there yet.
I'm glad he didn't die between. I mean, he could die tonight, But I'm sorry, that's a bit blunt. But I'm glad
he did out first.
I'm glad he didn't because. Then people can't say, "Oh, he knew it was prophetic. It was his final prophetic act. He knew he was going to die." He's 97 or whatever. 98.
Okay. It would have given me the heebie-jeebies. Right? If he actually had died, I'd be inclined to give him that. I mean, we don't have a lot of wins. I would give him that one.
But hate to be fatalistic, but
if he passed away,
yeah.
If he passed away
at the
halfway through a talk, would it then start people saying whatever he was saying in that talk was wrong because the Lord will not?
I will be saying that. I don't know about people. I will be saying that.
And he was leading them astray, struck down. It's a bit morbid.
That would be too perfect.
But so is social media. So social media were predicting mandatory missions for young men. So because there aren't enough going, we've got the missions for couples ×2, which Jane spoke about. We've got stop killing each other because unfortunately there's been some higher profile Mormon families or stories in the news of families who happen to be Mormon having tragedies.
I reckon this. I mean, I have to jump in on this one. I reckon for a church leader to say stop killing each other because they're a spate of people dying,
kill your family,
husbands killing their wives specifically. They are not even going to go that far because that would look like safeguarding.
Yeah.
No.
Can I say that I would love them to phrase it like that, Jane? I would love them to say, stop killing each other. Just please, don't do that. Just really bluntly, just stop it.
What they need is for Nelson to stand up and say, please put the guns down, stop killing one another, because they've had a request from the college that they need a good soundbite for when he's presented with his award for peace, and they can't really find one, so they need this general conference to get one from.
This wasn't just to attribute it properly. This was not a Jane quote. This was someone in the comments earlier on. So, please don't kill your family was suggested on social media. I can't find out who you are.
That was Libby. Before the show even started, Libby, let's bring up. I'm scrolling all the way back through the comments.
So I was just
right, guys. Let's Phil. Why does that?
Yeah, I predict that there will be some indirect talk about don't kill your family after 3 high-profile LDS family murders in the States.
Leave it to the women. Indirect being the key word. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we've also got people predicting something about the importance of spiritual blessings from tithing. So not so much the money, but manna from heaven and all that.
Can we stop with saying that people need to do stuff because they're going to get blessed for it? Why can't we?
Isn't that the whole premise of the gospel?
Well, it's nonsense.
My home.
Like, so why can't we go
It's
back to the
selfish.
whole do things because it's the right thing to do? The
Yeah,
amount of times people
well-
come back with like, oh, but you don't pay tithing for it to do charity work. You pay it for the blessings. I'm like, if you might, but I don't. I
Yeah.
didn't pay tithing because I was like, oh well, then I'll be looked after. I pay tithing because it's to help others. That's what I was taught.
Well, yeah, but it's not really though, is it? To help others, we were told that. So we've got double down on the lazy learner stereotype. So maybe not the lazy learner language, but a double down on those people.
He'll come up with some new alliteration.
Yeah, tearfully suck up to Nelson.
Oh, yes.
A new quorum of the 12, and they'll all be Chinese. Social media fast. We've got Nelson, as Nemo said, with another prophetic, heartfelt goodbye.
You've got the boy who cried wolf. He'll just keep doing it, and then one time he will actually die, and then it will be prophetic. And then I'll do a video being like, but here's all the others that he did, thinking he would die, and then didn't.
Yeah. Yes. About 10 of them.
Yeah.
And then we've got love for the LGBTQ while secretly hating them. Count Curl Obscurulous Scholars.
Nice.
So we come to the final section.
Has the phrase LGBTQ ever been said before in conference? I think it might have
Nemo.
one.
Oh,
check
Yeah,
probably
it
with
out.
the so-called in the front. So-called
check it out.
LGBTQ.
Come on, fact check, monkey. Go.
Okay. Oh dear. Oh, where are we going? So we've also got this absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
image
Anderson
on
said
the
it in
screen.
April 2022.
So one time, and so there's presidents. It's happened.
Yeah, Anderson said it again in October of that year.
We got an ally. Okay.
So, and that's it.
Okay. For those of our listeners or watchers, probably the majority of you are in the United States. This is the United States, in case you're wondering. And what we want to look at now, briefly, what has become popular in the last few years since Russell M. Nelson took the reins, is for him to announce where the church will sink their money without actually doing anything. And all of these dots are temples. So the red ones are, did we say that they were operational temples? Or no, the red ones are announced, Nemo.
Yeah.
And the blue are operational. So I guess to prove that, if we go to Salt Lake, we've got the blue there over the Salt Lake Temple, and the red here over the Taylorsville, Utah temple, which is not yet in operation. So how many temples do we think we will get this time announced? So last time was 18.
Just before we go there, I'd like to say that
18,
this data and information was put together and sent to us very kindly by a viewer. So thank you very much to that person for sending this in.
Yes, thank you. So we can see here that they've put in these outlying temples around Mexico City that were announced last time, like the mini temples that they'd put in there. So yeah, how many are we thinking? On the sheet, I've put 15, and that possibly this is one that I picked up from social media. Someone put Spanish Fork, that Spanish Fork will get a temple, and then someone corrected them and said no, Spanish Fork, which I think is down here in towards Provo.
It's just below Provo.
Yeah. So here's my English I-15.
You're saying it wrong.
There you go.
Spanish Fork.
Spanish Fork.
Spanish Fork.
There we go. So just below Provo. Spanish Fork, but someone said no, it won't be in Spanish Fork, it will be to the east here in Mapleton, because that is where all the rich people live. So look out for a Mapleton, Utah temple.
I've been to Mapleton. It is quite lovely,
but they couldn't possibly drive to Provo or down here to Payson.
Of course not.
They need it to be in Mapleton. So or Springville possibly.
Prime real estate.
So yes, let's go to Peter. How many are you going for, Peter?
Okay, can I just say hello to the Simmons of Spanish Fork, who hosted me after my mission when I went to visit my late companion, Brent Simmons, awesome guy. and they were doing it properly. They were in the middle of the rural nowhere, lots of dead cars in the yard, brilliant, wonderful family, loads of dogs. That's how you're meant to do rural Mormonism, not living in some mansion up in the mountains.
There we go.
So yeah, I'm predicting one less than last time because Russell's met the threshold of beating Hinckley. The pressure's off a bit. However, one has to factor in that rumours from the temple committee say he's asked them to find 1,000 places to put temples. But I'm going slightly reining back to 17. So maintaining quite a lot. But the criteria has to be it's either somewhere where there are no Mormons at all, or a regional country that only has 2 states. So that's been the criteria for all the recent European ones.
Well, what's going on in Nebraska and South Dakota? I mean, it doesn't look like there's a lot there, but there's a few places they could put things. Yeah,
mostly
or Greenland's not got one yet. Yeah. And let's be honest, you know, who doesn't want to go to
it
the
looks
temple
white
in
and
Greenland
delightsome.
or Iceland? Yeah, or if we came further around the globe, Peter, we've got this little gem.
Oh yeah,
Ireland. I think Ireland's ripe for it.
I think so. I think they deserve it.
Not many members. Stick one. In fact, not Dublin. Let's stick it as far south as we can.
In fact, no. You know where it needs to go? No. It needs to go in Derry. Or Londonderry, depending on your persuasion, so that it can be a temple for all people.
Yeah,
it can be a temple for the Protestant Mormons and the Catholic Mormons.
Yeah,
yes,
and that isn't a joke. My Irish Mormon family have often been asked whether they were Protestant or Catholic Mormons in job interviews.
Yeah, yeah. You see, I think we've got enough on this landmass here.
I think that island's
sorted,
well covered.
Yeah. With these three,
because I mean, the top part of the island is basically uninhabited. If you look at all the mountains, basically no one lives there. So
there's nothing up there. There's nothing important there.
There's nothing there.
No. Especially here in this city, you know, there's people from there just.
It's just a bit stabby, isn't it?
Game
really?
of Thrones.
It's a bit stabby.
Junkies and stabby alcoholics.
What's your point?
We used to have a wall.
The wall's still there. The wall is still there. See, I reckon that this conversation, as much as I will go nuts with you all later on, is exactly reflective of what the Church Temples Committee is doing, and I reckon that it's going to be exactly like this. Jane's been going on about how much we need a Scottish temple, so just to piss me off, we're going to get I don't know, maybe 2 in Ireland. We're going to get, because we need the north and the south.
One in Dublin, one in
Isle
Belfast.
of Man.
Yeah, Wales.
I'd love for the Shetlands to get one before mainland Scotland gets one.
I genuinely think that's so good.
That would be amazing, because then they could say to the majority of members in Scotland, it's still faster for you to go to Preston than it is to go to the Scottish Temple that is painted with tartan paint. But moving on, Nemo. Oh no, Jane. Let's go to Jane whilst we're on the Scottish. Jane, how many are you predicting and where?
I'm still in a bad mood now. Because Peter, I'm sorry, you've already registered your revelation as 15. So just because I am saying 17,
thank you.
I don't think we're going to get a Scotland temple yet. Literally, because I think they're pissing me off. But I think we might get Ireland and possibly Wales.
Oh, a Merthyr Tydfil. A Merthyr Tydfil temple.
Merthyr Tydfil would fit the current trend, because we had the Birmingham one announced, which flabbergasted us all. But Merthyr Tydfil is the other kind of hotspot in the UK for people leaving Mormonism. A previously really kind of stronghold for Mormonism in the UK, and the numbers have just dropped massively. So that would fit down here in the Cardiff area for something new.
Real quick point,
but Nemo.
Anthony Campbell. Is that Campbell? I can't see his full name.
Don't start the war again.
Right. This chappie, there you go, Anthony Campbell.
I saw it too.
He's throwing out shade about Las Malvinas, but I've just looked at the Falkland Islands branch on Meeting House Locator, and what's really interesting is the church has done something. There is a Port Stanley has a branch, and it is it is covered by the Chile Puerto Montt mission. So they've chosen Chile as an independent party because it's not in an Argentinian stake. Because imagine the backlash that would cause.
Oh my god!
So that's a little bit of church diplomacy for you there.
And another trivia.
Wait, though, how far?
One of the families in my Tunbridge Wells wards, where I grew up, moved there from the Falklands.
Oh, there you go.
So I've actually met Falklands Mormons.
There you go.
Literally, to go to state conference, they will have to go through Argentina unless they come through this channel to get to Chile.
They go down to Tierra del Fuego, yeah.
Yeah. I can't even. Anyway, so Nemo, what was your prediction?
My prediction was 12, I believe. And I'm going to stick to it.
Any locations?
I think Scotland will get a pity temple. I think they will. I don't think they can refuse to give that dog a bone anymore. You know, they've got to just...
It'll be a micro temple if we get one. It'll be like the tiniest little...
And it'll be
toying with us now.
It'll be in Edinburgh, not in Glasgow. But actually, where it'll really be is Stirling. It'll be halfway between the two, right?
Consensus seems to be Stirling, yeah.
Yes, so that's where that would go. I think that Poland will get a temple. Because if you zoom into Europe there for me, you can see that there's a big gap. There's a big gap there where there's a lack of temples. So I think we'll see one there, even though there's basically no members and they don't even have a stake there yet. It won't stop him. He'll just keep building temples.
No, we've seen that there's no requirement for permission or actual members. Anymore.
I think we'll see one in Utah. And it reminded me of something interesting that they're planning with that revamp of downtown Salt Lake, which is they're going to convert a building into a temple, and the temple's going to remain undedicated, and it's going to be in a state of permanent temple open house, so that they can take away some of the mystery and some of the scariness and secrecy around the temple, so people can just wander through the temple at any time. But yeah, I reckon, because they seem to be trying to get one in every European capital. Like, I'm surprised they don't give one to Berlin, but Frankfurt they've already got two, so yeah.
If they really want to take away the mystery, what they need to do, I was going to say, if they really want to take away the mystery with that kind of open house temple, what they need to do is they need to have each room with a glass partition down the middle, and people actually on the other side of the glass partition pretending to be in a session with the screen going, and then as they move through the rooms, it'll be like you know, like when you go to a museum and they're showing all the different parts of the factory working. They could have real people who sit there just kind of doing the session but not actually doing a session, and people being baptized but not actually being baptized for the dead, and just like kids with lollipops like stood at the glass window tapping on it, as if they're at like a zoo or something, and they can charge entry because that's not new.
In all seriousness, looking at that map, I'm wondering whether
big gap down here.
I wonder whether they might try and put a temple in Kaliningrad. That might be the undisclosed Russian location, because it's that little enclave just under Lithuania. Kaliningrad, is that just under?
No, I thought it was
it's further up. Is it? Where's Kaliningrad these days?
Yeah, I thought it was here.
Yes,
not St. Petersburg.
No. So Kaliningrad's a little enclave of Russia that sits down in the Baltics, so just a bit lower, and it's cut off from the rest of Russia. There you go, just below you. Yeah, it's just under Lithuania.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So Kaliningrad, that's technically Russia there. So I wonder if they are going to put a temple anywhere, whether that might be where it goes.
Yes.
And then it will serve the members in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia as well. So if they do it at all, they might just want to go down the memory hole.
Yeah.
and
Well,
forget that they ever announced it.
I wouldn't put it past President Nelson to start just throwing out like Qatar temples. Oh my gosh.
Well, they've already
He's
announced
already done
one.
Dubai.
Yeah,
I was about to say just
that's already
throwing
been
out
announced.
Dubai
Mhm.
and different things in these places where there are very, very, very few members, like Sudan. Where could it go? You know, because to members who aren't from these places and who have no kind of knowledge, they'd be like, oh wow, you know, Sudanese temple, we must be doing really well in that area. But what he's done is just thrown a dartboard at a map and being like, yeah, they can have one. Why not? We've got 32 billion spare in the back pocket.
You know, you want really outlandish predictions, you go for Ulaanbaatar is that in Mongolia?
Yeah, or
People have talked
Vanuatu
about that a
temple.
few times, haven't they?
Just
right then.
It's about to go
I
under
think
the water.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah, and then they don't have to do it, can they? They can say it's a temple boat, a boat
ship.
temple. Oh my gosh, a
Nice.
temple ship that they can send around. But only on canals, because Joseph said that canals are okay, but proper rivers and seas aren't. But thank you everyone for being here. So Nemo is going to have the halftime shows for every session.
Yeah.
15 minutes after every session finishes, and that's at whatever time live.
Yeah.
Nemo and us at different times will be present to give you a review. You can see in the description below a link to everyone's channel, but if you go to Nemo's channel, you will see all of those 5 halftime shows.
Yep.
We will have a roundup of the predictions to see what we got, what we didn't get at the end of Nemo's last show, which will be late on Sunday evening here in the UK, or the Sunday afternoon session for you guys there in the United States. We will also love it if you could like this video and subscribe. Let me see if I've got my thing that I made earlier. No, I haven't. But if you can like and subscribe, that'd be great. You can also donate using the link in the description below. But as if by magic, we have a TikTok. Because I saw this earlier. There is an account on TikTok. I think it's called Jack Mormon. And you are fantastic. And he's done this little TikTok talking about predictions, or talking about what this conference is going to be. Let's see what he's got for us.
Hey, Father. General conference is this weekend, and President Nelson wants to know what everyone should talk about. Have them talk about how evil the world's getting, and how Satan keeps trying to destroy my true church, and make sure that the entire focus is about Jesus. And then have someone talk about how we totally love the LGBTQ plus community, but then hint at the fact that we totally think they're controlled by Satan. So, the usual? The usual, right. And how many times should they mention Joseph Smith? Who? Joseph Smith. Oh, I see what you're doing. We're trying to appear like a more mainstream Christian church. We have to stop talking about Joseph Smith so much. Got it. But we shouldn't F him.
Thank you, Jack Mormon. And on that note, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Nemo. Thank you, Peter, for being here. Thanks, everyone. Great time in the chat. Again, like, subscribe, and we will catch you on the halftime shows over on Nemo's channel tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.